My name is Amanda Brennan. I am 23, and I found out what my family really thought of me from a hospital waiting room with my 4-month-old son shaking with fever in my arms and a termination email open on my phone. The same week I lost my job, a UX design position I had held for 6 years at a healthcare software company in Austin. My son Eli woke up at 3 in the morning with a 104-degree fever, blue lips, and a wheezing in his chest that the night urgent care could not address. They sent us to Dell Children's Medical Center. Eli was admitted at 5:15 a.m. on a Friday with bronchiolitis and a secondary respiratory infection. I had been alone with him for 11 hours. I had not slept. I had not eaten. I had been holding my son upright on a pediatric exam table so he could breathe. I sat in the waiting area on the 3rd floor at 7:12 in the morning, while a respiratory therapist set Eli up on a humidified oxygen mask in the room behind me, and I called my mother. My mother lives in San Antonio, 79 miles south on Interstate 35. She picked up on the 4th ring. I asked her if she could drive up, just for tonight, just one night, so I could shower and sleep 4 hours in the parent chair beside Eli's crib, instead of doing it in shifts on a vinyl couch. She told me one sentence. And that sentence is the reason you are here. Amanda, we can't keep rescuing you. Your brother has plans tonight. My brother Tyler is 28 years old. He lives in my parents' guest bedroom in San Antonio. He works as a part-time DJ at a club on the River Walk. Tyler's plans that night were a DJ set at a quinceañera after-party in Stone Oak that was paying him $325. My mother, a woman who had been on my payroll for 7 years and had not earned a paycheck since 2008, told me on the 3rd floor of Dell Children's that my brother's $325 DJ set outranked my son's first hospitalization. What I did from that vinyl waiting room chair in the next 6 minutes ended 7 years and $268,800. And that is not even the part that broke them. The part that broke them walked through the sliding doors of the 3rd floor unit at 10:40 the next morning. An old man in a blue Houston Astros jacket and a Stetson, with my son's missing diaper bag in his right hand and a worn leather folder in his left. He set them both down on the chair beside me. And he said something none of them ever expected to hear out loud. Welcome to Quiet Reckoning, the channel where dependable people finally close the account. If someone in your life has ever treated your steadiness as a renewable resource, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And tell me who actually showed up the night you could not show up for yourself. And be sure to subscribe. The part with my grandfather is the part you will remember. I want to tell you about the phone call because that is where it starts. I had been sitting in the waiting area for 40 minutes when I made it. A respiratory therapist named Sebastian had put me there. Mom, we are going to get him stable. You sit. Drink some water. There is a vending machine down the hall. I will come find you when he is settled. I sat. I did not drink water. I sat on the gray vinyl couch with the slight tear at the seam, and I held my phone in both hands. And I looked at the termination email I had received Tuesday at 3:18 p.m. The subject line said, "Workforce reduction effective immediately." My 6-year design job was gone. My health insurance ended in 11 days. The Cobra quote that had landed in my inbox Wednesday morning was $1,942 a month. Eli's hospitalization, depending on how long he stayed, would run between $12,000 and $40,000. I had $19,000 in my savings account. I had $43,000 in my 401k, which I could not touch without a 43% tax penalty. I had a brokerage account my late grandmother had set up for me when I turned 18, which I had never touched and was now worth a little over $8,000. I had no husband. I had no co-parent. I had no second income. I had a 4-month-old son in a humidified oxygen mask, a termination email, and a phone with my mother's name still glowing on the recent calls list. I called her. You should know who I was before that morning. Because it explains why my family treated me the way a thermostat treats a room. I grew up in a 2-bedroom rental in a part of San Antonio. My mother always called the wrong side of Loop 410. My father, Mitch Brennan, was an HVAC installer for a commercial mechanical company. He worked steady, came home tired, and rarely raised his voice. My mother, Cheryl, stayed home with us and shopped on QVC and bought lottery scratch-offs at the HEB on Fredericksburg Road. My younger brother Tyler was the planned one. The boy child. The one for whom my mother kept a baby book and a lock of hair and a list of his first words. I was the older sister. The responsible one. The one who packed Tyler's lunchbox in middle school because my mother did not have it in her this morning. And who paid Tyler's overdue community college balance at 21 so he could re-enroll for the spring semester he never finished. I paid for community college by working the closing shift at a Whataburger on Bandera Road. I transferred on scholarship to the University of Texas at San Antonio. Then moved to Austin at 24 for an entry-level UX position. By 28, I was a senior UX designer at a healthcare software company off Mopac Boulevard. The person they put in the room when the patient portal redesign had to actually work for an 80-year-old man in rural Texas using a flip phone. I designed for people who could not design for themselves. That was the job. And I was good at it. And I had been paid $137,000 a year to do it. Until Tuesday. I had decided at 30 to become a mother on my own. I had used an unknown sperm donor at a fertility clinic in North Austin. Eli was conceived on my second IUI cycle. I had carried him alone. Had given birth to him alone at St. 10. David's North Austin in June. And had taken 12 weeks of leave alone before returning to a job I would lose 9 weeks later. My mother had not come for the birth. My mother had told me she did not approve of the path I had chosen and that she would not bless an arrangement she did not understand. My father had driven up the day Eli was born. Sat in the hospital lobby for 36 minutes. Held Eli once for under a minute. And driven back to San Antonio because my mother had texted him she was not feeling well. That had been my family's response to becoming grandparents. For 7 years, since I was 26 years old, I had been sending my parents $3,200 a month. I never said the number out loud. Not to a coworker. Not to my closest friend Hadley. Not to a soul. I told myself it was for their rent. My parents had been renting a small ranch house off Blanco Road since 2017, after the bank foreclosed on their previous home. And the rent had climbed every year. I told myself I was the only one in the family steady enough to carry it, and being the steady one had become its own kind of identity. I am telling you this now, so you understand. I was not naive. I was responsible to the point of self-erasure. There is a difference. And on that vinyl couch, on the 3rd floor of Dell Children's at 7:12 in the morning, I finally learned what it was. My mother answered on the 4th ring. I told her in 7 sentences. Eli was in the hospital. Bronchiolitis. Oxygen. Probably 2 to 3 nights. I had been alone with him for 11 hours. I needed to sleep. I needed her to drive up. Just one night. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her television in the background. The QVC channel was running a special on something called a Mediterranean diet cookware set. And a woman with a southern accent was explaining the steaming insert. My mother said, "Amanda, sweetie, your daddy and I have a lot going on right now." I waited. Tyler has plans tonight. He is doing a big show in Stone Oak. We promised we would be there to support him. You know how it is. He has been working so hard to build his name. Tyler had been building his name for 10 years. Tyler had never paid for his own phone bill. Tyler had not held a job longer than 7 months since high school. I told her quietly that Eli was sick. I told her I had lost my job on Tuesday. I told her this was an emergency. My mother said the line. The one Tyler repeated to me 3 weeks later. At the family dinner I am going to tell you about in a moment. With no memory that he had been the original reason for it. Amanda. We can't keep rescuing you. Rescuing me. The woman who had paid her rent for 7 years. The woman who had paid Tyler's community college balance. His 3 speeding tickets. His lease deposit on a sound system he never used to make a living. The woman who, at 30, had decided to have a child on her own because the family she came from was not the family she wanted Eli to grow up, calling. And besides, my mother said, you always land on your feet. You are so resourceful. I did not cry. I want you to understand that part because everyone expects the woman in the hospital waiting room to fall apart. And I did not. I looked down at the termination email, still glowing on my phone. I looked across the hallway at the closed door of room 314, where my son was breathing through a humidified mask. Then I looked at the call timer at the top of my screen, 3 minutes and 41 seconds, and I made a decision that had been waiting 9 years to be made. I told my mother I had to go. I hung up. The first thing I did was not revenge. The first thing I did was solve the actual problem. Because that is what I do. With my left thumb, I pulled up the number for a licensed pediatric night care agency I had bookmarked when Eli was 3 weeks old and had never used. A woman named Brisa answered on the second ring. I told her my name, my situation, and the hospital floor in 5 sentences. Calm as a Sunday afternoon. I need a night caregiver who can sit hospital duty starting at 9 p.m. Tonight, 4-month-old boy. Bronchiolitis. On oxygen. Room 314 at Dell Children's. I am the mother. I need to sleep 4 hours and shower. The care is for me, for the parent, so I can keep going. Tomorrow night possibly the same. Brisa did not blink. Brisa had seen worse. She told me she had 2 RNs on call. Both pediatric, both credentialed for hospital-based home support, and one of them a woman named Yolanda, who had 3 grown sons of her own and had retired from Dell Children's Pediatric ICU 18 months ago, could be at room 314 at 8:40 p.m. I authorized the charge $720 for the first overnight, $410 for each additional 12-hour block, and asked Brisa to text me when Yolanda arrived on the floor. Brisa said, "Honey, we will take care of him so you can take care of yourself." I sat for a moment with that sentence. It was the first thing anyone had said to me in 28 hours that did not require me to be capable. 12 minutes later, Sebastian, the respiratory therapist, came out to tell me Eli was stable. The oxygen saturation was back into the mid-90s. And I could come back into the room. I went back. I sat in the recliner beside his crib, and I watched him sleep. His small chest rising and falling under the soft hospital onesie. I had brought no diaper bag. I had run out the door at 3 a.m. with Eli in a car seat, and my purse and nothing else. He needed his own blanket, his own pacifier, the little fox-shaped lovey he could not sleep without. I would have to drive home at some point to get them. I would have to leave him. There was exactly one item left on the list that morning. One I had carried for 7 years and never once allowed myself to touch. And now my left hand was free. My son was breathing. And my mind was very tame. Very clear. I opened my banking app. The login screen glowed under the dimmed hospital fluorescence like a small cold moon. Inside the app, on the 3rd screen down, there is a section called Scheduled Transfers. And I had 4 of them. I knew them by heart the way you know a scar. The first was labeled Mom and Dad Rent, $1. Babe. The second said Mom Household, $600. The third said Dad Truck Insurance, $400. The fourth, the one I had set up 4 years ago and never named clearly, said Only Family, $400, $3,000, $200 on the first of every month. For 84 months, I had set the first one up at 26 years old. The night my father called me sobbing that the bank had foreclosed on the house in Helotes and they had a month to find somewhere else to live, I had never let myself add up the total. Because the total felt like a door I could not walk back through. So I made myself look. The app did the math without asking permission. $268,800. More than $250,000. Gone out of my life, one quiet automated transfer at a time. While my mother told the women at her Tuesday Bible study at Faith Bible Church that Mitch and I are just barely making it through retirement, I pressed cancel on the first transfer. A pale blue checkmark appeared, and a single line of text I will remember the rest of my life. Recurring transfer canceled. I pressed cancel on the second. Recurring transfer canceled. The third. The fourth. 4 taps. Maybe 22 seconds. And 7 years simply stopped. The way a faucet stops when you turn the handle all the way to the right. I felt no triumph. I felt no grief. I felt a strange flat clarity. The way a wireframe finally aligns to a grid after you have been nudging it for an hour. Then, as I was about to close the app, my eyes caught on a line item in the transaction history I had never bothered to scroll into before. A single payment. 11 months ago. Buried under the dad truck insurance label. It read, Equipment T, $18. Ling ling ling. My brother's initial. Not my father's truck. Tyler. I locked the screen and laid the phone face down on the recliner armrest. The fluorescent above Eli's crib hummed at the same frequency the QVC steaming insert had hummed in my mother's living room. I made myself sit. In the dim hospital room at 7:31 a.m. With the question I had been avoiding for 7 years. Why had I done it? The easy answer. The one strangers offer in comment sections is that I was a pushover desperate for parental love. That answer is wrong. And if you have ever been the dependable one, you already know why. I did it because somewhere along the way, I had decided that being needed was the same as being safe. If I was the load-bearing wall, no one could remove me from the family. I was buying my position one direct deposit at a time. My grandfather understood that about me before I did. His name is Reginald Reggie Brennan. My father's father. An 81-year-old retired locomotive engineer who worked the BNSF Houston to Galveston rail for 38 years. Reggie has lived in the same small clapboard house in the Heights neighborhood of Houston since 1971, the summer before Eli was born. When I was 32 and 7 months pregnant, Reggie drove up to Austin in his old Silverado to help me assemble Eli's crib. He stayed 2 nights on my couch. The second night, after we had finished the crib and were eating drive-through tacos at my kitchen island, he set down his big red and looked at me and said, "Mande, there is going to come a day when your mama tells you no. And I want you to remember on that day that I told you yes first. Are you hearing me?" I had thought he meant, call me if you need help with the baby. I think now, sitting in that recliner at Dell Children's with the banking app still glowing under my locked phone, that he had meant something much more specific. He had meant, don't let them drain you. Baby girl. Not anymore. My grandmother, Dorothy, Reggie's wife of 56 years, had passed in November of the year before Eli was conceived. Cancer. Fast 11 weeks, from diagnosis to her last breath. Reggie had called me himself at 4:15 in the morning the day she went. His voice had been steady. He had said only, "Dottie is gone. Don't drive down in the dark. Come tomorrow when the sun's up." That had been Reggie's whole way of moving through the world. Make the call. Don't drive in the dark. I had been in my second trimester, in the middle of a deadline, and I had not asked Reggie what Dottie had left him or how he was managing afterward. I had assumed my parents had handled it the way I had assumed my money was paying my parents' rent. I had spent a lifetime assuming the best about people who had never once earned that assumption. And I had called that assumption family. Sitting in that recliner with my son 3 feet from me in a humidified oxygen mask, I finally understood that I had been funding a story about my family, not the actual family. The actual family had chosen a DJ set in Stone Oak. I closed my eyes. I did not sleep. I waited for Yolanda. At 8:38 p.m., a soft knock came at the door of room 314, and a tall woman in her late 50s with silver braids and a pediatric ICU lanyard let herself in. She set down a small canvas bag. She washed her hands at the sink. She walked over to the crib and looked at Eli's chest rise and fall under the oxygen mask. She turned to me and she said, in a low, warm voice that had calmed 1,000 parents over a 30-year career, "Mama, I am Yolanda. You go shower in the family bathroom down the hall. Then you eat something. Then you sleep on that couch in the corner. I have him." I did not argue. I had not been mothered like that in 7 years. I went and showered. I came back. I ate a granola bar from Yolanda's canvas bag. I lay down on the couch in the corner. I slept for the first time in 29 hours. What I did not know, what I could not have known at 9/11 on that Friday night. In a small, dim hospital room on the 3rd floor of Dell Children's Medical Center was that my grandfather Reggie Brennan had been in his clapboard house in the Heights since 6 o'clock, and that at 7:40 p.m., his phone had rung with my father Mitch's name on the screen. Reggie had taken the call sitting on the back porch. He had built himself in 1978. Watching the last of the daylight bleed off the live oak in the yard. He had listened in silence for 3 minutes while my father explained, in his careful, subdued voice, that Amanda had called and asked Cheryl to drive up to Austin, and that Cheryl had said no, and that he was worried about her up there, alone with the baby in the hospital. Reggie had asked one question. "Mitchell, did Cheryl say no first?" "Before she asked you." My father had paused. Then he had told the truth. Because he could not lie to his daddy. "She did?" "Pulp. She did. I tried." Reggie had said, "All right, son." And he had hung up. Reggie had sat on the back porch for about 7 minutes. He had watched a cardinal land on the bird feeder Dottie had put up. In 2019, he had thought about what Dottie had told him in November, the week before she died. When the hospice nurse had stepped out to refill the morphine drip, he had thought about a worn leather folder in a fireproof safe under his workbench in the garage. A folder he had not opened in 15 months. And then Reggie had stood up. Slowly because of his left hip. And he had gone inside. And he had put on a clean blue button-down and the Houston Astros windbreaker Dottie had bought him for his 75th birthday. And he had taken the folder out of the safe. And he had stopped by my apartment in East Austin on his way north because Mitch had given him the spare key 3 years ago for exactly this kind of thing. And he had packed Eli's diaper bag himself, the fox-shaped lovey. 2 clean blankets. The pacifier from the kitchen drawer. 3 bottles. The diaper cream from the changing table. A clean onesie. He had gotten back into the Silverado and driven the 212 miles from Houston to Austin overnight. Alone. At 81 years old. With the diaper bag on the passenger seat and the folder on the center console. And he had arrived at the 3rd floor reception desk of Dell Children's Medical Center at 10:40 the next morning. He asked the unit clerk where to find Amanda Brennan. The clerk asked if he was family. Reggie looked at her over his bifocals. The way an old man looks at a young person who is trying to do her job. And he said gently, "I'm what's left of it." Reggie walked into room 314 at 10:41 a.m. on Saturday morning with the diaper bag in his right hand and the leather folder under his left arm. He did not say hello. He did not ask if I was okay. He set the diaper bag on the chair by the window. He set the folder beside it. He walked over to the crib, looked down at Eli, who was awake now. The oxygen mask off. Breathing room air with the cannula taped to his cheek, and laid one large weathered hand softly on Eli's blanket-covered foot. "There he is," Reggie said, mostly to himself. "There is my great-grandbaby." Then he turned to me. "Mande, I drove all night. I would have come sooner. Your daddy called me at 7:40. He should have called me at 3. I asked him how he knew about the bag. Reggie said, "Your daddy mentioned on the phone you had run out the door with nothing. I have got a spare key. I stopped at your apartment on the way up. I got the Fox, the pacifier, 3 clean bottles, some diaper cream. The lovey was under the couch. I think he kicks it down there at night." He set the diaper bag open on the chair so I could see every item in there carefully arranged. The lovey on top? I started to cry. I had not cried in 29 hours. Reggie waited. He let me cry. He did not say, "Don't." He pulled the second recliner over to the wall beside mine, and he sat down in it. And he did not open the folder that morning. He sat with me until 2 p.m. Yolanda came back at noon to check Eli's lungs and his temperature and to refill the humidifier. She introduced herself to Reggie with a kind of professional warmth I had not been on the receiving end of in a long time. Reggie told her, "Mom, you are the angel my granddaughter needed last night. I want you to know I will not forget that." Yolanda told him she was just doing her job. Reggie said, "No, Mom. There is doing the job. And there is doing what you did. I know the difference." Yolanda took the compliment. She left. Reggie said, "Mande, you are going to sleep some more. I am going to sit with the boy. When the doctor comes by, I will tell her you went down to the cafeteria. Do not argue with me on this. I drove 212 miles to do exactly this. Let me do it." I did not argue. I slept on the recliner for 3 more hours. Reggie sat beside Eli's crib and held his hand through the slats. He did not open the folder. He left it on the chair under the diaper bag. When I woke up, he was still sitting in the same position. Eli was awake. Reggie was singing under his breath an old Hank Williams song my grandmother Dottie had loved. Eli was watching his great-grandfather's face, the way infants watch ceiling fans. They had been doing this for 3 hours. We were discharged on Sunday afternoon. Eli's lungs had cleared. The cannula came off. He kept oxygen saturation in the high 90s on room air. The hospital sent us home with a nebulizer, an oral steroid, and instructions to follow up with his pediatrician Tuesday. Reggie drove us home in the Silverado. He carried Eli's car seat to the front door of my apartment one-handed because his left hip was acting up after the long drive. He set the diaper bag down on my kitchen island. He set the folder beside it. "Mande," he said, looking around the small apartment, the IKEA furniture, the second-hand glider in the corner, the photographs of Eli on the wall. "I want to stay tonight. If it suits you, I'll sleep on this couch. You sleep in your bed. The boy sleeps in his crib. Tomorrow I will drive home. But tonight, I would like you to sleep 8 hours. Will you let me do that for you?" I let him. I slept 8.5 hours. The longest I had slept since Eli was conceived. The next morning, Reggie made me coffee in my own kitchen and scrambled 4 eggs with 2 pieces of cheap white toast. And he set the plate down in front of me and he said, "Mande, before I drive home, I need to tell you what is in this folder. Are you ready?" I told him I was not ready. "But to please tell me," Reggie said. "All right, then I won't show you the contents today. But I want you to know it exists. Your grandmother Dottie put it together. She knew. She had been watching for years. She asked me, the week before she went, to keep it safe and to give it to you when the day came. I have been carrying it in my safe for 15 months. I think this is the week. Monday. I think the day has come. But I am not going to push you. You tell me when. He paused. There is one other thing. Have you canceled what you needed to cancel? Financially, I told him I had. Friday morning. In the hospital. 4 taps. 22 seconds. Reggie nodded slowly. Then your mama is going to find out on Tuesday. The first of the month is Tuesday. Whatever she calls you with. You remember, I am 4 hours away by truck. You can pick up that phone any time. He kissed Eli on the top of his head. He left at 10 a.m. I did not see him again for 10 days. I want to skip forward. Because the next 2 weeks are where the real work happened. And most of it happened at my kitchen island with Eli on a playmat at my feet and a laptop open in front of me. The morning after Reggie left, I called my best friend Hadley Park. Hadley is a forensic accountant for a small firm in Austin. She does fraud investigations for divorce attorneys for a living. I had known her since UTSA. Hadley arrived at my apartment Tuesday afternoon. After Eli's pediatrician follow-up, with her laptop and a 6-pack of Topo Chico. Amanda, she said, sitting down at the island. You sounded different on the phone last night. Tell me everything from the top. Then we are going to look at 7 years of bank statements together. I told her everything from the top. The hospital. The phone call. The transfers. Tyler's $18,000. Reggie's folder. Hadley listened without interrupting. When I was done, she opened her laptop, opened mine, and said, let's pull every statement. Then we are going to do what I do for a $40,000 retainer for free. Because you are my person. We did. We logged into my bank, exported 84 months of statements, and dropped them into a pivot table. This is what I do for a healthcare software company. I have built spreadsheets that track patient engagement data across 273 rural Texas clinics. I can certainly do it for my own life. I sorted $268,800 by where it had actually landed. I filtered by date. Payee. Withdrawal location. Category code. I cross-referenced every transfer with my parents' account, which I had access to as a cosigner on their checking, a cosigner status my mother had added me to in 2018 when she had needed help disputing a charge and had simply forgotten to remove me afterward. The picture that assembled itself, cell by cell, was not the picture my mother had painted to the Tuesday Bible study at Faith Bible Church for the last 7 years. The rent on the small ranch off Blanco Road, the rent I had thought I was covering, had been paid in full only 28 times out of 84 months. 28. My parents had been 6 to 9 months behind on rent for most of 7 years. The landlord had been carrying them because he was an older man named Mr. Prate Halverson, who had been my father's foreman in 1992 and had told my parents on the original lease that he would not put them out. My father's truck insurance, $600 a year, was real. About $4,200 over the period. About $11,000 of grocery, utilities, gas. So roughly $45,000 had gone to actual legitimate household expenses. Where had the other $223,000 gone? I filtered by withdrawal location and merchant code. And a cluster lit up like a rash. QVC. The QVC merchant code appeared 371 times in 84 months. The dollar amounts ran from $49.95 to $499. The total was just over $86,000. My mother had not had a little shopping habit. My mother had been running a small, unregulated personal department store out of the spare bedroom of a rental house she had not paid the rent on. The second cluster was lottery. Scratch-off purchases at the H-E-B on Fredericksburg Road and the Valero on Blanco Road. ATM withdrawals at the Valero. Almost all of them on Tuesdays and Fridays, which were the days the H-E-B restocked the lottery machine. About $49,000 in lottery purchases over 7 years. $49,000 in $2 and $5 and $10 tickets. The third stream ran to Tyler. The $18,000 for equipment 11 months ago. $6,000 for Tyler phone in 2022. $11,000 spread across 9 payments labeled Tyler Insurance in 2021 and 2022. $22,000 in 2020 labeled Tyler Tuition for a community college semester Tyler had not completed and had not attended past week 4. The total to Tyler, conservatively, was about $83,000. $268,000 minus $45,000, legitimate equaled $223,000 in misappropriation. $86,000 to QVC. $49,000 to lottery. $83,000 to Tyler. $5,000 unaccounted for. Almost certainly cash withdrawals for the same scratch-offs. I had financed my mother's QVC closet and her lottery habit and my brother's DJ equipment for 7 years. While my mother told her Tuesday Bible study at Faith Bible Church that Mitch and I are just barely making it through retirement, God, in this case, was a 33-year-old single mother who had just lost her job and her sleep and her son's first hospitalization in the same week. Hadley printed the summary to a single page on her portable printer. 1 clean sheet. 12 rows. 84 months of evidence. Hadley looked at the page, looked at me, and said quietly, "Amanda, what do you want to do with this?" I said. "I am going to wait. My mother is going to call me by Friday at the latest." My mother discovered the canceled transfers, the way she discovered everything that cost her something late, and at maximum volume. The first of the month had been Tuesday. No deposit landed. By Thursday, at 3 p.m. Her name was on my phone. I let it go to voicemail twice. The third time I answered, because avoidance was the old me. And the new me had Eli on a hip and a spreadsheet in a manila envelope on the kitchen island. Her voice came through warm as a tray of cinnamon rolls, the voice she uses on church ladies and the HEB cashier. "Amanda. Sweetie. I have been worried sick about you and that precious baby." How is little Eli worried sick? The woman who chose a quinceañera after-party. I told her Eli was home. I told her he was fully recovered. I told her I had not been laid off. I had been terminated as part of a workforce reduction, which was a distinction I had stopped explaining to people who did not actually want the information. "Well, sweetie, that is just terrible. Your daddy and I have been praying. And I noticed the deposit didn't come through on Tuesday. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some kind of mix-up with the bank. With everything you have been going through, I am sure it slipped your mind." I told her it had not slipped my mind. Silence. Then the guilt. Right on schedule. "Amanda Lynn, after everything your father and I did for you, after we kept a roof over your head, after we drove you to Whataburger at 5 in the morning when your car broke down at 16, your daddy is on a fixed income. The rent is due. We have nothing to fall back on. What are we supposed to do?" I let her run. She circled back, the way she always did, to the one weapon that had never failed her. And she said it again. Softer now, almost wounded, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Amanda, we cannot keep rescuing you." And there it was. The third time I had heard that sentence in 14 days. Except this time, I did not flinch. And I did not explain. I simply said, "I know, Mama," and let those 3 words mean something she had not intended. My mother had been rescuing me by not paying her rent with my money. My mother had been rescuing me by buying $98,000 of QVC merchandise and $49,000 of lottery tickets while telling Bible study she was barely making it through retirement. My mother had been rescuing me by funding Tyler's DJ career with money I had wired her to keep my father's truck insured. What does that mean? "Amanda," my mother said, her voice tightening. "What does that mean? You know, I told her I had to feed Eli. I hung up while she was still talking, which I had never once done in 33 years. When the mother fails, she sends the aunt. That afternoon, my mother's older sister, Aunt Laverne Whitlock, texted me directly. Laverne is 66 years old, lives in a brick ranch in Bourne, 23 minutes north of San Antonio, with her second husband Dale and a Boston Terrier named Sargent. Laverne had texted me maybe 9 times in my adult life. 5 of those times had been to ask if I could donate to the Sunday school silent auction at her church. Her message was a paragraph of borrowed outrage. Amanda, I just got off the phone with your mother and I am sick about it. Your parents are barely getting by. Your daddy has health issues. And you have decided to punish them because Tyler had a gig on a Friday night. Your grandmother Dottie would be ashamed. Family takes care of family. You need to do the right thing here. I read it twice. The line about my grandmother almost got me, because Dottie was the one person in that family I had not wanted to disappoint. Then I remembered Dottie's actual words to me at her kitchen table, the summer I turned 28. When she had pressed a small white envelope into my hand, the day she taught me to make her cornbread. Don't give your mama any more of what you make. Baby, your granddaddy and I have been watching. Promise me. Amanda. I had not opened the envelope until weeks after she died. It had contained a card and a check for $300 and a note in Dottie's careful Palmer method handwriting that said only, "For you." Not for her. Laverne had it exactly backwards. So I did not write a paragraph back. I did not defend myself. I did not apologize or cry. I attached the single-page Hadley and I had printed at the kitchen island, the one with 12 rows and 84 months on it, and I typed one sentence beneath it. Aunt Laverne here is where the money my mother says she barely lives on actually went. The QVC charges and the lottery purchases are hers. Ask here. I put the phone down. I fed Eli a bottle. The phone buzzed once the little ellipsis of Laverne typing. Then it stopped. Then nothing. No reply came. Not that hour. Not that day. I imagined Laverne sitting at her kitchen table in Bourne, reading 12 rows of numbers she could not argue with. Because that is the thing about a spreadsheet. You can call a person dramatic. You cannot call a column of QVC charges dramatic. It simply sits there, being true. I had spent my whole life managing my mother's feelings and Laverne's feelings and Tyler's feelings and my father's silent submissions. It had never once occurred to me that the kindest, hardest thing I could do was hand them a fact and let them sit with it alone. I want to stop here for a moment, because if you have made it this far, you may be the person I am about to describe. I spent 7 years believing I was paying my parents' rent and keeping my father's truck insured, and I was actually paying for $98,000 of mail-order home goods and $49,000 of lottery scratchers. If you have ever wired money on faith, pull one statement tonight. Just one. Cross-reference it with what the recipient told you it was for. If you do not have the password to your own parents' account because you trust them to manage what you sent, that is not love. That is religion. And if this is hitting close to home, subscribe, because the next part is where my grandfather opens the folder. And what was inside, it broke something open in my family that no amount of QVC merchandise could put back together. My mother is many things, but she is never out of moves. When the warmth failed and the aunt failed, she reached for the one stage she controlled completely. She called a family dinner. The invitation came as a group text to the whole Brennan Whitlock chain on a Wednesday afternoon, framed in her best wounded matriarch register. Family. Let's all gather at our house this Sunday at 5 p.m. to welcome baby Eli properly and clear the air. We love each other and we can work through anything. Amanda. Sweetie. I hope you will come and we can put this misunderstanding behind us. A misunderstanding. 18 days after she chose a quinceañera DJ set over my son's first hospitalization, it was a misunderstanding. I called Reggie that evening. I had not yet opened the leather folder. The folder had been sitting on the top shelf of my closet for 10 days. Reggie picked up on the second ring. Mande. I told him about the dinner. I told him my mother had called it for Sunday in San Antonio. Reggie was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Mande. Have you opened my folder yet? I told him I had not. Reggie said, All right. Don't. I would like to bring it Sunday and open it there. Is that all right with you? I told him it was. He said, I will drive up Saturday. I will pick you and the boy up at 3 p.m. We will go down to San Antonio together. I will drive. You don't need to be doing that drive alone with him in the car after a hospital stay. He paused. And Mandy. Don't tell your daddy I am coming. Don't tell anyone. Let me walk in on my own. The morning of the dinner, I dressed Eli in a soft cotton onesie with a tiny embroidered owl on the chest. Dottie had sent me the onesie 3 weeks before Eli was born, with a card that said, Only for my great-grandbaby. D. I packed his diaper bag, 6 bottles, 8 diapers, 2 changes of clothes. The nebulizer the hospital had sent home in case his lungs flared. The fox-shaped lovey he could not sleep without. I tucked 1 folded sheet of paper into the side pocket. 12 rows. 84 months. The page Hadley and I had printed at my kitchen island. I dressed myself in a navy wrap dress that did not press on my still sore C-section scar. I put on the small gold cross necklace Dottie had given me for my high school graduation. Reggie arrived at 3 p.m. Saturday. He drove us to a motel off I-35 north of San Antonio Saturday night, because he did not want me to drive 5 hours back to Austin late at night with Eli in the car after a hard day. He paid for 2 rooms. Eli and I slept in one. He slept in the other scene. Sunday morning at 10, we drove to my parents' house. We arrived at 4:45 p.m. The yard was already full. Laverne's gray Acura, Uncle Dale's pickup, my mother's cousin Brittany's minivan, Brittany's husband Travis's truck, my father's brother Don's old Tahoe, which had surprised me. I had not seen Don at a family event in 4 years, and Tyler's leased Camaro, which had a fresh dent on the back bumper that I would later learn was from the parking lot of the Quincy and Yara after-party. Reggie killed the engine. He sat for a moment with both hands on the steering wheel. Then he turned to me. Mande. I love you. Dottie loved you. Whatever Cheryl says in there. You remember that. I want you to walk in ahead of me with that boy. I want them to see his face before they see anything else. I will come in behind you with the folder. I asked him what was in the folder. Reggie said, Mande. I am going to ask you to trust me one more time. Just like Dottie asked you to trust her with that envelope. Can you do that? I told him I could. He squeezed my hand. He picked up the folder. I rang the doorbell. My mother's voice called out, Come in. Sweetheart. The door's open. I turned the knob. We walked in. The first thing I saw when I stepped inside my parents' rental on Blanco Road was my mother, standing in the front hall with her hands clasped at her waist, wearing the cream-colored blouse she had bought from QVC the year I turned 25. She had styled her hair. She had put on her good earrings. She had set the stage. Behind her, in the living room, the audience was already seated. Aunt Laverne on the love seat closest to the kitchen, Uncle Dale beside her with a Lone Star tall boy in his hand, my mother's cousin Brittany perched on the edge of the recliner, Brittany's husband Travis on a folding chair from the patio, my father in his usual armchair by the front window, looking down at his hands. Uncle Don on a dining room chair pulled in for the occasion, the only person in the room who looked up at me directly when I walked through the door. My brother Tyler on the leather ottoman in the center of the room, in a Texans hoodie and Air Jordans I had paid for and did not yet know it. His phone face down on his thigh, in the only act of restraint I had ever seen from him in 28 years. My mother started to cross the hall toward me with her arms out for a hug. Then she saw Reggie behind me. And she stopped. Reggie had not been invited. Reggie was not on the group text. Reggie was 81 years old in a clean blue button-down, and the Houston Astros windbreaker Dottie had bought him. And my mother's face did the small, involuntary thing faces do when a person walks into a room you did not write a part for. "Pup?" my mother said, recovering quickly. "Oh. What a wonderful surprise. We did not expect, please. Please come in. Mitch. Look who's here." My father lifted his head. He saw his daddy. He stood up halfway out of his armchair and then sat back down. Reggie said only, "Cheryl. Mitchell. I'd like a chair. Please. The straight one from the kitchen. If it's all the same." Uncle Don stood up immediately and went to get the chair. Don brought it back and placed it 3 feet from the coffee table. In the open arc of the living room, facing the love seat, Reggie sat down. He set the folder on his lap. He hooked his Stetson on the chair back. He folded his hands on top of the folder. He did not say another word. I carried Eli's car seat across the room and set it gently on the carpet beside my chair. Eli was awake, but quiet. Watching the ceiling fan turn, I sat down on the upholstered chair my mother had pulled close to the coffee table. I left my coat on. I kept the diaper bag at my feet. My mother sat down on the love seat next to Aunt Laverne. She took Laverne's hand. Laverne did not take hers back, which I noticed, and my mother did not. "Well," my mother said, brightening her voice, "I am so glad we are all together. This has been a hard month for our family. There has been a lot of hurt feelings on both sides, and I just want us to be able to sit down like grown-ups and clear the air." She looked at me. "Amanda. Sweetie, I want you to know your daddy, and I love you very much. We always have. And we love that precious baby boy. And whatever happened with the hospital, with the layoff, whatever was said between you and me on the phone, I am sure there is an explanation. I want us to be a family again." She paused. The way an experienced speaker pauses to let her audience supply the next emotion, Brittany made a small, sympathetic sound. Travis shifted in his seat. Laverne looked at her shoes. My father did not move. "You know," my mother said, settling into her rhythm, "your daddy and I have not had it easy. We did the best we could with what we had. We worked hard. And I think sometimes when you do everything for your children, they forget." She turned slightly. "The way you turn when you are addressing the room and not the daughter. And I will say this, Amanda has always been the strong one." She landed on her feet. She got the scholarship. She got the job. She has the apartment. The baby? And Tyler. Poor Tyler. She reached across the love seat and patted Tyler's knee. Tyler has had to fight for everything. His music. His self-esteem. His career. And so sometimes your daddy and I have to give a little more to the one who needs us more. And Amanda has never seemed to need us. That is a compliment. She turned back to me with wet eyes. And I just don't understand where this cruelty is coming from. Your brother never has these emergencies. Sweetie, your brother doesn't decide to punish his parents because he got laid off and his baby got the flu. The 4th time, in a warm, crowded living room with 9 people watching, my mother handed me the exact sentence she had used to leave my son alone in a hospital. And she had no idea. She had just loaded the weapon and passed it to me grip first. The room waited for me to cry, to shout, to crumble. I did none of those things. I reached into the side pocket of the diaper bag. Underneath the nebulizer mask, the hospital had sent home. And I took out one folded sheet of paper. I did not stand up and make a speech. The exhaustion still in my bones and the C-section scar that had not yet fully healed would not have allowed it. I unfolded the page one-handed and smoothed it flat against my thigh. I set it on the coffee table in the center of the room, where the late afternoon Texas light from my mother's front window fell across it. Then I said, in the same level voice I used to walk a software engineer through a wireframe revision, "You are right. Mama, Tyler never has these emergencies. I would like to show everyone in this room why." The room went very still. Laverne leaned forward despite herself. "This," I said, touching the top of the page, "is every dollar I have sent this household for the last 7 years. $268,800. 84 months. The top rows are the legitimate spending. $45,000. For the rent, the partial payments that actually reached Mr. Halvorsen. Daddy's truck insurance. About $4,000. Some utilities. Some groceries. Real bills. Real things I was proud to help with. I let that sit one beat. The rest," I said, "is the part Mama tells you all at Tuesday Bible study that she manages on her own." I touched the page lightly. Not for drama. Just to guide their eyes. $86,000 in QVC charges over 7 years. 371 transactions. Almost every order shipped to this address. A small sound went around the room, an intake of breath. The sound of a story cracking. Aunt Laverne made a noise I had never heard her make. Brittany's hand came up to her mouth. $49,000 in lottery scratchers. I continued. Purchased at the H-E-B on Fredericksburg and the Valero on Blanco. Almost all of it on Tuesdays and Fridays when the H-E-B restocks the machine. I let that one sit longer. And $83,000 to Tyler, including $18,000 for DJ equipment last year that was filed under Daddy's truck insurance. So nobody would ask about it. $6,000 for Tyler's phone. $11,000 for Tyler's car insurance. $22,000 in 2020 labeled tuition for a semester. Tyler did not finish past week 4. My brother's head came up very slowly. "That's where your card money comes from." "Ty," I said gently, because none of this was his fault first. It came from me. It always came from me. Tyler's face did something I had never seen it do. The casual entitlement he had worn since he was 11 years old simply slid off. And underneath was a 28-year-old man in a hoodie he could not pay for. In a leased Camaro he could not pay for. In a guest bedroom he had not paid rent on in a decade. "Mom?" Tyler said, his voice cracking. "Mom, is that true?" My mother's performance had nowhere to go. The tears she had summoned for sympathy were now just tears on a face caught in a full room with no audience left to convert. Her hand was trembling on Laverne's wrist. Laverne had not yet pulled away. But Laverne was not holding her back either. My mother opened her mouth to say something. I do not know what she was going to say. She got as far as, "That is twisted. Amanda. You have twisted all of those numbers. Your daddy and I have never." And that is when my grandfather set his Stetson against the chair leg and laid the leather folder on the coffee table beside my single page. The brittle rubber bands had to be coaxed off. They had been on the folder so long they had left grooves in the leather. Reggie opened the folder with the unhurried hands of a man who had waited 15 months for this exact moment. "Cheryl," he said, "please stop talking." My mother stopped. Even my mother, in 33 years of out-talking every room she had ever been in, knew that Reggie Brennan saying please in that voice meant something. Reggie drew out a stapled document. It was thick. It was official. There was a Houston law firm's embossed seal on the cover page, Calderon. Fam Ostrovsky. He set the document on the coffee table next to my single page. He laid the two pieces of paper side by side. The numbers and the trust. "This," Reggie said to the room, not to my mother. "To the room is your grandmother's trust, and mine. Last summer, before Dottie got the diagnosis, we sat down with our attorney and Dottie's primary doctor, and we moved most of what we had into this trust. Dottie was of sound mind. Her doctor signed an attestation, which is on page 3 of this document. She had been planning this for 2 years before she did it. She had been watching. He paused. He looked at my mother. His face had no cruelty in it. It had something worse. It had clarity. Cheryl. Dottie had been watching what you did with the money Amanda sent. She had her own bank. And her own way of looking. Dottie asked me a year before she got sick to start keeping a record. So I did. Every transfer. Every QVC delivery from the truck on this street. Every lottery ticket your sister Laverne mentioned to Dottie in passing, thinking she was making small talk. Every story you told the Tuesday Bible study at Faith Bible. Dottie had me trace it the way she traced quilt patterns. And what Amanda said on this table just now is the same picture Dottie and I had assembled. Except ours goes back 10 years instead of 7. He tapped the cover of the document. At the end, Dottie asked me one thing. She asked me to make sure that whatever was left of our life's work did not end up in the same place. Amanda's salary had been ending up for a decade. So Dottie and I made a trust. The house in the Heights. The 2 pieces of land out near Brenham. The savings. The small life insurance. The Silverado. Everything moves into the trust. The trust has 2 beneficiaries. Reggie looked at me. Mande. And Eli. There is a fund for Eli's education that becomes available when he turns 18. The rest is in trust for you. Payable in increments over your lifetime. In the manner Dottie was very particular about. Dottie did not want you ever again to be in a position where you had to choose between a hospital chair and your son. So Dottie and I made sure you would not be. The room was silent. Reggie turned to my parents. Mitchell. Cheryl. The house you are sitting in this rental, that is your business. But I will tell you what Dottie wanted you to know. The house in Helotes that the bank took in 2017, Aztec. Dottie and I had quietly offered to pay your back property tax that summer. You told us you had it handled. You did not have it handled. You lost the house. Dottie watched you lose that house, and she said to me that night, Rye. Our boy married a woman who is going to spend our granddaughter into the ground if we let her. And we are not going to let her. That was the night Dottie started the folder. My mother's face did a thing I had never seen it do. The wounded matriarch mask simply fell off. And underneath was raw panic. Because the kingdom she ruled the story she had told to Tuesday Bible study, and to Laverne and to the women at her hair salon for 30 years, had just been handed in a stapled document with 2 signatures to the daughter she had refused, to drive 79 miles to help. The room did not look at me. The room looked at her. What happened next is the part people always hope will be an apology. And it never is. And I want you braced for that the way I wish I had been. My mother did not say she was sorry. She cycled through everything else first. She wept loud and sudden. Pup. You cannot do this. Dottie would not have done this. You manipulated her. She was sick at the end. She was on the morphine. She would not have, Reggie said quietly. Cheryl. Dottie signed this in June. She passed in November. There were 5 months between her signature and the morphine. Her doctor was present. Our attorney was present. Calderon signed. Pham signed. Ostrovsky signed. Dottie was of sound mind. We made very good, and sure she was. He paused. My attorney says it stands. I have asked her 3 times. She has answered 3 times the same way. It stands. My mother turned to my father. Mitchell. Are you going to let your daddy do this to me? This was your mother. This was your inheritance too. This was my father lifted his head. For one moment. The same moment I had glimpsed 2 weeks earlier when Reggie had told me about Mitch's 7:40 p.m. phone call. My father looked at me. And his mouth opened. Amanda is right. Cheryl, he said. Barely a whisper. The QVC. The scratch-offs. I have known. I have known. My mother's head snapped toward him. The look she gave him was 38 years old. And it was the look that had ended every argument they had ever had since 1987. My father stopped. He looked back down at his hands. And that was my father's last word on the subject. I felt something in me let him go. Gently. For good. My mother, abandoned, even by her usual silence, turned to rage. You will regret this. Amanda Lynn. She hissed at me. The tears already drying because they had never been real. I will fight that trust. I will get a lawyer. I will tell every relative in this family what you and your grandfather did to us. You cannot just take a person's family money. Reggie answered before I could. Mild as buttermilk. It was never your family money. Cheryl. It was my daddy's. And mine. And Dottie's. And now Amanda's. And these things almost never go anywhere in court when the paperwork is clean. Almost never. He was careful with the word. An honest man. Even now. Tyler was crying actual tears on the ottoman. Not for me. In the dawning horror of a 28-year-old man realizing the well had a bottom. And that he had been standing on the person at the bottom of it. Aunt Laverne finally pulled her hand back from my mother's wrist. Laverne looked at the page on the coffee table. Then she looked at me. Amanda. Lavernicil. Very quietly. I owe you an apology. I sent you a text last week that I will be retracting. To everyone. She looked at Brittany. She looked at Travis. Dale. We are going home. Uncle Dale stood up immediately. Dale had not said one word in 41 minutes. Dale had been my mother's brother-in-law for 26 years. Dale had heard enough. Uncle Don. In the corner, on the folding chair. Did something then that I will remember the rest of my life. Don stood up. Don walked across the room. Don put one hand on Reggie's shoulder. The way one old man steadies another old man. Then Don walked to the coffee table, picked up my single page, and held it briefly in front of my mother's face. Cheryl, Don said, you owe my brother an apology. You owe Amanda an apology. You owe Mama Dottie an apology. You will not get the first one from me. You will not see me at Thanksgiving. Don set the page back on the table. Don nodded at me. Don walked out the front door. I gathered my page. Reggie gathered the trust document. I had one thing left to do. And it was the easiest thing of all. I stood slowly. Because the C-section scar still pulled when I moved too fast. I picked up Eli's car seat. Eli had slept through the last 12 minutes of the conversation. The way only a baby who has been on hospital oxygen for 2 nights can sleep deep and warm and trusting that the adults in the room would handle it. I reached into the small zipper pocket of my purse and took out the soft white hospital identification band Eli had worn for 3 days at Dell Children's. I had not been able to throw it away when the discharge nurse had cut it off his ankle. I had carried it home in my purse. I had not known why. I looped that small white band once around the handle of Eli's car seat and let it rest there. A piece of proof I would see every time I carried my son. Not the bank app. Not the spreadsheet. Not the folder. That little band was the whole story. The night my 4-month-old was on oxygen in a hospital and my family checked a quinceañera schedule, my mother was still talking. Threats sliding into pleading now. Amanda. Honey. Please. We can fix this. We are still family. Ailey is still my grandbaby. You are going to regret this when you are old. But her voice had stopped being able to reach me. The way a song stops when you finally leave the room, it has been playing in. I turned to Aunt Laverne at the door. Thank you for reading the numbers. Laverne. I know you will tell everyone the truth. It was not a threat. It was a fact. And she knew it. Laverne null. Then I looked at my father one more time. He met my eyes. He gave me a very small nod. It said, "I understand. I am sorry. I cannot leave her. It is too late for me." I gave him a very small nod back. It said, "I know. It is all right. I am still leaving." Reggie opened the front door. The 3 generations my mother least wanted under one roof, Reggie. Me. Eli walked back out into the cool San Antonio evening. I pulled the door shut behind us with my good hand. Softly, because slamming it would have meant I still wanted something from the people on the other side. I did not. The account was closed. Here is how it settled. Because I know you want to know. The trust held. My mother called 2 attorneys in November. Both told her the same thing. Calderon. Pham and Ostrowski had built the document carefully. Dottie had been competent. The witnesses were on file. The paperwork was clean. The threats quietly stopped. My parents continued to rent the small ranch off Blanco Road. But they could no longer afford the full rent without my transfers. And Mr. Halverson finally raised the difficult conversation he had been avoiding for 10 years. My mother had to take a part-time job at the front desk of a chiropractor's office in Castle Hills in January. $13 an hour. 18 hours a week. She has told her Tuesday Bible study at Faith Bible that it is to stay socially engaged. She has told no one that the HEB no longer extends lottery credit and that QVC no longer ships orders to her address. Tyler lost the Camaro in February. The lease company repossessed it from the parking lot of a Walgreens on Bandera. Tyler posted a long, tearful TikTok about toxic family dynamics and how some people just don't believe in their family's dreams. The video did not perform well. He lost 2,000 of his 14,000 followers in the comment storm. He has since taken a job at a guitar center off 1,604, where he makes $15 an hour and an occasional commission. He has not asked me for money. He texted me once in March. The message said only, "Where did it all go?" I sent him the same single page I had set on the coffee table. He did not reply. He has not asked again. Aunt Laverne told everyone the truth. Exactly as I knew she would. And the family chat went very quiet for a long time. Uncle Don comes to my apartment in Austin for Sunday dinner every other week. He drives up from Hello Teas. Sometimes he brings Reggie. The 3 of us, me, Eli, and the 2 old men sit at my kitchen island and we eat the cornbread Dottie taught me to make. And we do not talk about my mother. My father calls sometimes, but only ever when he is alone in the truck on a job site. He always asks about Eli first. I always answer. We talk for 10 or 12 minutes. He always says, "Amanda, I am proud of you." Before he hangs up, I have not yet told him I love him back. I am not there yet. I think I will be. Eventually. Yolanda, the night caregiver from the hospital, stayed on as a part-time sitter for Eli on Wednesdays so I could focus on a part-time consulting contract I had picked up by January. She sends Eli a card on his half-birthday. Hadley, my forensic accountant best friend, sends me a copy of one of her own bank statements every January with a note that says, "Audit me anytime." Sister, it is the closest thing to a love letter I have ever received from a person I am not related to. Reggie did not move closer. Reggie said his roots were in Houston and his bones were not made for Austin traffic. But he comes up the 3rd weekend of every month, drives up Friday, drives home Sunday, and brings the folder every single time, and sets it on the bookshelf in my living room and says, "In case anybody forgets, Eli is 10 months old now. He has 6 teeth and a stuffed fox he will not sleep without. He calls Reggie Pop Pop." I picked up a permanent UX role at a different healthcare company in February. Smaller team. Fully remote. No in-office requirement. I make $12,000 more than I made at the old job. The new company also includes Eli on the family medical plan from day one. If there is one thing I learned from a hospital waiting room, a folder I did not open for 10 days. and 4 taps on a banking app at 7:28 on a Friday morning in late October. It is this. The people who praise you for being the strong one are usually just naming the person they have quietly decided they will never have to carry. And the day you stop being their bank is the day you finally get to be something better, which, for me, was simply a mother to my own son. Instead of a parent to everyone who refused to grow up. That is my story. 7 years. A folder. And the truth my whole family had buried. If this reminded you to read one statement tonight, or to write down a number you have never wanted to add up, or to check who you would actually call from a hospital waiting room at 7:20 on a Friday morning, take that as your sign and do it today. Do not wait for the layoff. Do not wait for the bronchiolitis. Do not wait for a Friday morning in late October when the only person who picks up the phone is an 81-year-old man with a folder he has been holding for 15 months. Make the call now. While you are still well. While the people you love most are still in a room you can walk into. If you know someone in your life who is always cast as the strong one, share this story with them. Tell them the strong one is allowed to put the folder down. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And tell me the name of the person you would call from a hospital waiting room. I read everyone. From a small apartment in Austin, with my son asleep in a high chair and a grandfather coming up the 3rd weekend of the month, I am Amanda Brennan. And the only thing I ever needed, in the end, was the 81-year-old man who drove 212 miles through the dark with a diaper bag and a folder under his arm, and walked into a pediatric unit at Dell Children's Medical Center and said, "I'm what's left of it." In UX, the most dangerous flaw is not always the button that breaks. Sometimes it is the path that quietly trains people to accept pain as part of the process. For years, my family had designed me into one role, the reliable user. The one who would keep clicking, keep paying, keep solving, even when the system gave nothing back. I kept mistaking familiarity for love. Because I had used that broken interface for so long, I forgot I was allowed to leave it. That morning at Dell Children's showed me what a real redesign requires. You do not fix a harmful system by making the exhausted person adapt better to it. You remove the dark patterns. You stop rewarding false emergencies. You make the truth visible. My son did not need a mother trapped inside a family design built to drain her. He needed a mother brave enough to close the old screen, protect her energy, and build a life where help, honesty, and care were not hidden behind impossible buttons. Author Nguyen Van Chien.